I was still in my scrubs when he appeared at my door, a stranger with a bullet wound and eyes that held more secrets than fear. "Please," he whispered, blood seeping through his shirt. "Just tonight. If anyone asks, I'm just your patient." I should have called 911. I should have locked the door. But something in his voice made me choose the scalpel over the phone. I cleaned the wound, sutured the skin, felt his pulse steady under my trembling fingers. When I asked his name, he smiled. "A dangerous, beautiful thing. Does it matter?" The next morning, 3 men in tailored suits stood in my hallway, calling him Sir. That's when I understood. I hadn't saved a patient. I'd saved the man who owned half this city. And now, somehow, he seemed to think he owned me too. You will feel so many emotions in this mysterious love story I'm about to tell. Please support us by clicking subscribe to the channel. The knock came at 2:47 a.m. I know because I'd been staring at my phone, calculating how many hours until my next shift, how many shifts until I could pay this month's rent and still afford groceries. The math never worked. It hadn't worked in 3 years, not since I graduated with a medical degree and enough debt to drown in. I should have looked through the peephole, should have called building security, if we'd had any. But something in the urgency of that knock bypassed every rational thought I'd been trained to have. The man who stumbled into my apartment was bleeding. That was my first coherent observation. The second, he was beautiful in a way that felt dangerous, like looking directly at something you know will burn you. Dark hair falling across his forehead, eyes the color of smoke, a jawline that belonged in museums. But it was the blood that held my attention, spreading across an expensive white shirt, the kind of fabric I'd never be able to afford even without bullet holes in it. "Please," he said, and his voice was steady despite the pallor of his skin. "Just tonight, if anyone asks, I'm just your patient. I'd taken an oath. First, do no harm." The irony wasn't lost on me, that the harm had already been done, that I was being asked to undo it, that every instinct screamed this was a mistake. "Sit," I told him, already moving toward my bathroom where I kept supplies I'd stolen from the hospital. Not stolen, borrowed. I always told myself borrowed, like I'd return the sutures and gauze someday. He sank onto my couch, a secondhand nightmare I'd found on Craigslist, and watched me with an intensity that made my hands shake as I laid out my instruments. I'd sutured knife wounds in the ER, extracted bullets from gang members who'd be back next week with new holes. But this was different. This was my apartment, my choice, my complicity. "Shirt off," I said, surprised by how clinical I sounded. He complied without modesty, and I saw the topography of violence written across his torso, old scars, each one a story I didn't want to know. The fresh wound was in his left shoulder through and through, which meant I wouldn't have to dig for the bullet. Small mercies. "This will hurt," I warned him. "It already hurts," he replied. "You'll just make it hurt less." I worked in silence, my hands steadier now that I had purpose. This was what I knew. Blood and tissue and the architecture of healing. I irrigated the wound, checking for fragments, feeling his pulse strong and steady beneath my fingers. He didn't flinch, didn't make a sound, just watched me with those smoke-colored eyes like he was memorizing my face. "What's your name?" I asked, because the silence was becoming unbearable. "Does it matter?" "I'm putting needles in you. It matters to me." He almost smiled. Almost. "Dominic." "Emma," I said, though he hadn't asked. "Dr. Reyes, technically, though the title feels pretentious when you're 28 and living in a studio that costs half your salary. You talk when you're nervous. I'm not nervous." "You're terrified," he said quietly. "But you're doing it anyway. That's different from brave." "That's better." I didn't know how to respond to that, so I focused on the sutures. 12 of them, neat and small, the kind of work that would leave minimal scarring. I was good at this. It was the only thing I was certain I was good at anymore. When I finished, I dressed the wound and stepped back. He should leave. This should be over. But he was pulling out his phone, silent but vibrating constantly, the screen lighting up with messages in a language I didn't recognize. "You can't go to a hospital," I said. It wasn't a question. "They'll find me there." The people who did this, and the people who'll want to know why I'm still alive. My throat went dry. I was harboring someone. That's what this was. I was aiding and abetting, or whatever legal term would be used when this inevitably went wrong. "You need to leave," I whispered. "By morning. Please." He nodded, but there was something in his expression that made me think he was agreeing to the words but not the sentiment. Like he was already making calculations I couldn't follow. "You have steady hands," he said, "and you didn't ask questions. That's rare. That's valuable. I'm asking now. Who shot you?" "Someone who thought I wouldn't survive it. And the people who'll come looking. Some will want to finish the job. Some will want to protect me." He caught my wrist gently, carefully, his fingers warm against my pulse point. "You've just become part of a story you don't understand, Emma. I'm sorry for that." I pulled away, heart hammering. "Just be gone by morning." I left him on my couch and locked myself in my bedroom, knowing I wouldn't sleep, knowing I'd made a choice that would echo in ways I couldn't predict. Through the door, I heard him moving quietly, heard the soft sound of him settling in. When dawn broke and I finally emerged, he was gone. But my apartment door had a new lock, industrial grade, the kind you see in security catalogs, and on my kitchen counter, an envelope. Inside, $10,000 in crisp hundreds, and a note in elegant handwriting. "You're under my protection now." My hands shook as I read it again. Protection. Like I'd asked for it. Like I'd agreed to trade my medical expertise for whatever this was. 3 hours later, getting ready for my shift, I saw the black car pull up outside my building through my window. The driver was looking directly at my apartment, and he was holding a phone, showing someone on the other end exactly where I lived. I tried to give the money back. That was my first thought after the shock wore off, after I'd stuffed the envelope into my underwear drawer and gone to work with trembling hands. $10,000. More than I made in 3 months. Money that could erase my credit card debt, could buy Sophie textbooks without her taking another campus job. But I couldn't keep it, except the envelope had no return address, no phone number, just that single initial, elegant and damning. I made it through morning rounds on autopilot, my mind circling back to the man on my couch. Dominic. The way he'd said protection like it was a gift instead of a cage. My shift ended at 3. The man in the suit was waiting at my building entrance. He was young, maybe 30, groomed and expensive. "Dr. Reyes, Mr. Castellano requests you accept the ride." He gestured to the black Mercedes idling at the curb. "I don't need a ride. Nevertheless, I'm taking the subway. I'll accompany you then." Pleasant, like we were discussing weather, like my choices weren't disappearing with each word. I took the subway anyway. He followed, maintaining distance but never leaving. At my stop, he walked 10 paces behind me, waited until I was inside before returning to his car. The message was clear. I could choose how I was protected, but I couldn't choose not to be. That night, I opened my laptop to research Dominic Castellano. Before I could type, my email pinged, subject line, "She's the doctor who saved him." Inside, a photo of me walking to my car 3 nights ago, before any of this. Before I'd made the choice that marked me. Below the photo, loose end. I couldn't breathe. Someone wanted me dead, and I didn't know why. I didn't hear my door open. Dominic stood in my living room like he belonged there, dressed in black. "How did you get in?" "You were being watched before you met me. By people who wanted me dead. Now they think you matter to me." "I don't..." The words strangled. "I don't matter to you. They're not wrong." He crossed the room, took my laptop, studied the email. "You saved my life. That makes you either an asset or a liability. They've chosen liability." My phone buzzed. A photo of Sophie leaving her dorm, completely unaware she was being photographed. Pretty girl. Shame if something happened. The room tilted. Dominic caught me before my knees gave out. "No," I whispered. "She has nothing to do with this." "I know. That's why I already have 3 people on her. She's safe, Emma. You can't promise that. I can promise this. I will end anyone who tries to hurt her. Or you." He said it like a vow. "Let me protect you both." I looked up at this stranger who'd invaded my life, who'd brought violence to my doorstep. "I don't want to be saved." "Too late. You already saved me. That's how this works." Sophie's face on my phone. 20 years old, studying biology, innocent of everything except being related to me. "Okay." The word tasted like surrender. "Okay." Dominic moved to my window, studying the street with professional assessment. Pack a bag. You're staying somewhere safer tonight. This is my home. This is the first place they'll look. For the first time, I saw regret in his expression. I'm sorry I brought this to you, but now we handle it my way. My phone buzzed again. Another photo of my building from across the street, time-stamped 15 minutes ago. You were chosen as a message. Tell him. Marco sends his regards. I showed Dominic the screen, watched his face go absolutely still, carved from fury. Marco, I whispered. Who's Marco? Dominic was already on his phone, speaking rapid instructions in another language. When he finished, he looked at me with something like pity. Someone who wants to hurt me by hurting you, he said quietly. Someone who just made the last mistake of his life. The safe house wasn't what I expected. I'd imagined something clinical. Bare walls. The kind of place witnesses hide before trials. Instead, Dominic brought me to a penthouse in a building I'd walked past 100 times, always wondering who lived somewhere that touched the sky. Now I knew. People like him. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. Furniture that looked like art. It was beautiful in a way that made me feel small. This is temporary, Dominic said. Just until I handle Marco. Handle. The word felt heavy. It means I make sure he can't hurt you. And if he's not reasonable, he looked at me then. Really looked. Then I removed the problem permanently. I should have been horrified. But that person had died when I opened my door to a bleeding stranger. I need to understand who Marco is. Tomorrow, Dominic moved toward the door. Tonight you sleep. Sleep didn't come. At 2 a.m., my phone buzzed. Unknown number. Your sister is pretty when she sleeps. Second floor, room 237, blue comforter, stuffed elephant on her desk. Those details were right, all of them. I called Dominic. He answered immediately. They sent me a message. They described Sophie's room. I'm sending someone now. I heard movement, car doors. We're moving her tonight. 3 hours later, he returned. I emerged from the bedroom to find him in the kitchen, still in black, looking tired in a way that made him seem human. Sophie, safe, already on her way. I drank the whiskey he poured. I need to understand who Marco is. All of it. Dominic nodded. Sit down. Marco Vitale raised me, found me when I was 19, working construction. He taught me the business, treated me like a son. His voice was flat. We built an empire together. Then he started changing, wanted expansion that required hurting people who didn't deserve it. I pushed back. We fought. And I won. Took control. Exiled him. Sent him away with enough money to start over. He looked at me. I should have killed him. But I couldn't. He'd saved me once. You couldn't have known. I should have. His fingers wrapped around mine. Emma, there's something else. He showed me a video. A warehouse. 2 men arguing. Dominic, younger, and Marco. Then a woman stepping between them. She pulled a gun. The shot was deafening, but it wasn't Dominic who fired. The woman fell. Marco stood over her, gun raised, face twisted with satisfaction. His wife, Dominic whispered. Isabella. She tried to stop us. Marco shot her to prove a point, then blamed me. I couldn't breathe. He's been planning this for 3 years, Dominic continued. And when I ended up at your door, he saw his opportunity. You're his revenge. My phone buzzed. A photo of us at this table, taken through the window. You can't protect her, but you can trade her. Midnight tomorrow. Come alone, or I send pieces. I showed Dominic. Watched something dangerous crystallize in his expression. I'm not trading you. I know. Emma, tomorrow night I need to show you something. His voice was quiet. You need to see what I am before you decide if you can live with it. I already know what you are. No. You know what I've told you. Tomorrow night, you'll see what I've done. My laptop chimed. Email. Sender unknown. Ask him about the warehouse fire. Ask him how many people burned. I turned the screen toward Dominic. Is it true? Yes. No hesitation. 3 years ago, I burned Marco's operations. Made sure they were empty first, but yes, 17 businesses destroyed. How many people lost their jobs? 342. He said it like he'd memorized the number. I helped them find new work. But Emma, I won't lie, I destroyed lives to stop him. I should have been horrified. Instead, I saw someone who'd counted the cost. Someone who remembered 342 faces. Tomorrow night, I said, show me your world. Why? Because I need to know if the man I'm trusting is worth what it's going to cost. Dominic nodded. Then his phone buzzed. He answered, listened, his expression shifting. What? Marco just uploaded something. He turned his laptop toward me, a video titled The Doctor and the Devil. It was us, at my apartment, me stitching his wound. The caption made my blood run cold. She saved the man who killed my wife. Now she'll learn what mercy costs. 50,000 views already. Comments vicious. Speculating. Sharing my name and address. My phone started ringing. Hospital calling. Then my supervisor. Then numbers I didn't recognize. My life was burning on the internet while Marco watched. And somewhere in the dark, he was smiling. The video had 500,000 views by morning. I watched the number climb while sitting on Dominic's bathroom floor, my phone screen blurring. The comments were worse than the video. Strangers dissecting my choices, my worth. Someone had found my graduation photo. Another linked Sophie's Instagram. My supervisor's voicemail was brief. Administrative leave, pending investigation, 23 seconds to dismantle everything I'd built. Dominic's voice came through the door. Emma, let me in. I'm fine. You're on a bathroom floor at 6 a.m. That's not fine. I opened the door. He was already dressed, looking like someone who hadn't just destroyed my life by existing in it. I'm handling it, he said. You can't handle public opinion. I can handle Marco. He crouched to my eye level. The video, the narrative, that's his play. He wants you isolated, ashamed, vulnerable, wants you to blame me and run. Maybe I should. You won't. Not arrogance, certainty. Because you don't fold, Emma. You never have. My career is over. Your career is paused. I have lawyers. They're already building a case. You can't know that. I can buy the hospital if I need to. I stared at him. You're serious? About protecting you? Yes. His hand found mine. I know you save people who don't deserve it. I know you put yourself in debt for Sophie. I know enough. The silence stretched between us. If we're doing this, I whispered. I need rules. What kind? 3. First, you don't make decisions about my life without telling me. Second, Sophie stays protected but out of your world. Third, you tell me the truth. Always. Dominic studied me. One condition, you stop apologizing for needing help. Something cracked in my chest. Okay. Get dressed. I'm taking you somewhere. An hour later, we arrived at a community center in an industrial neighborhood. Inside, the space hummed with life. Kids doing homework, adults in a computer lab, a kitchen serving meals. You built this? I asked. 5 years ago. There are 11 more across the city. He stopped at a bulletin board covered in photos. This is what I do with money Marco thinks I'm wasting. These are the people he wanted me to sacrifice. I studied the faces, seeing proof that the man who'd invaded my life had also built sanctuaries. Why show me this? Because tomorrow night you'll see the other part. The part that protects this. And I need you to understand both versions are true. That night, I found Dominic on the balcony. Can't shut your brain off either, I asked. Never could. I stood beside him. Tell me about Isabella. She was kind. Too kind for Marco. She believed love could save him. He paused. She was wrong. Do you think love saves anyone? I think it makes you vulnerable. Makes you do stupid things like trust a doctor who could have called the police. My phone buzzed. Tomorrow night, Riverside Warehouse, come alone, both of you, or the doctor's sister learns what real fear feels like. I'm coming with you, I said. Absolutely not. It's not a request. Emma, you don't understand. Then explain it. Dominic was quiet. I'll offer him money, power, territory. And when he refuses, I'll make sure he never threatens anyone again. You'll kill him, if necessary. And if I ask you not to, then I'll find another way. But some people can't be reasoned with. I thought about Sophie's voice. About mercy and monsters. If you have to, I whispered. If there's no other choice, I won't stop you. Tomorrow, whatever happens, you stay behind me. Promise me. I can't promise that. I'm a doctor. Saving people is what I do. He almost smiled. Then I guess we're both stupid. My laptop chimed. A photo. Sophie's dorm room, taken from inside. Recent. I can reach her anytime. Remember that? Dominic's expression went arctic. He's inside her security. Someone on my team is compromised. He made calls, then looked at me with apology. We're moving Sophie again, tonight and tomorrow. Tomorrow we end this. His phone buzzed. The warehouse burns. We looked out at the city, and I felt it. The moment before everything changed. Somewhere, Marco was watching. Tomorrow night, this would end. The safe house upstate was nothing like the penthouse. It sat at the end of a gravel road, surrounded by trees that hadn't yet shed their autumn colors. A farmhouse, renovated but still wearing its history in the slope of the porch and the creak of the floorboards. Sophie was waiting on those steps when we arrived, her arms wrapped around herself despite the jacket someone had given her. Expensive, not hers. A reminder that nothing in her life belonged to her anymore. She saw me and ran. I caught her halfway across the lawn, felt her shake against me with relief or rage or both. What the hell, Em? Her voice cracked. What the actual hell is happening? I had no answer that wouldn't terrify her more. So I just held on, breathing in the familiar scent of her shampoo, feeling the weight of every choice that had brought us here pressing down on my shoulders like stones. Dominic stayed by the car, giving us space, but Sophie saw him, and her body went rigid in my arms. Is that him? The guy from the video? It's complicated. It looks pretty simple. She pulled back, her eyes, our mother's eyes, searching my face for explanations I didn't know how to give. You saved some criminal, and now we're both in hiding. That's not complicated, Em. That's insane. I know. Do you? Anger now, bright and sharp. Because I just left school. My friends, everything. Because some man in a suit showed up and said my life was in danger. They wouldn't even let me call you. Do you know what that felt like? I did. I knew exactly what it felt like to have your safety stripped away, to become a passenger in your own life. I'd been living it for days. I'm sorry. The words felt inadequate, too small for the magnitude of what I'd done. Sophie, I'm so sorry. I was just trying to help someone, and it became a nightmare. Yes. She studied me for a long moment. Then her expression shifted. Something older than her 20 years moved behind her eyes. Understanding earned through our childhood, through watching me sacrifice everything to keep us afloat after our parents died. You can't save everyone, Em, she said it gently, like she'd been waiting years to tell me. You never could, but you keep trying anyway. The truth of it hit like a physical blow. She was right. I'd been trying to save everyone since I was 18 and suddenly responsible for a grieving 10-year-old. Trying to be parent and sister and enough, always enough, even when I was drowning. This one mattered, I whispered. They all matter to you. Sophie touched my face, her thumb brushing away a tear I hadn't realized had fallen. That's your problem. And maybe your superpower. I haven't decided yet. Inside the farmhouse, Dominic's security team had transformed the space into something both comfortable and impenetrable. Cameras hidden in corners, reinforced doors, windows that looked normal but probably weren't. A woman in her 50s, Maria, the one Dominic had mentioned, was making coffee in the kitchen, moving with the efficient calm of someone who'd done this before. Your sister will be safe here, she said when she saw me looking. I have 3 granddaughters. I understand what's at stake. I wanted to believe her, needed to believe her, but trust felt like a luxury I could no longer afford. Dominic and I left as the sun started setting, the drive back to the city stretching through landscape that grew progressively more urban, more claustrophobic. He drove in silence, and I watched his profile, the tension in his jaw, the way his hands gripped the steering wheel like he was holding something together through sheer will. Tell me about Marco, I said finally. Not the official version. The real one. He was quiet so long I thought he wouldn't answer. Then, I was 19 when he found me. Working construction, living in a motel that rented by the week, trying to figure out how to survive. He saw me break up a fight, 3 guys hassling the site foreman for protection money. I didn't think about it, just stepped in. Dominic's voice was distant, like he was watching a film of someone else's life. Afterward, Marco bought me coffee, asked me why I'd risked myself for a stranger. I told him because no one had ever stepped in for me, and I knew what that silence cost. And he recruited you. He saved me. The correction was sharp, gave me purpose, taught me the business, made me believe I was building something that mattered. For years, Emma, I worshipped him. He was the father I'd never had, the mentor I'd needed. We built an empire together, and I thought we were doing good, protecting neighborhoods, providing jobs, being the safety net the system never was. What changed? I grew up. He glanced at me, pain flickering across his features, started seeing the cost of our protection, the families we displaced for developments, the people who said no to our help and ended up ruined. Marco called it business, called it necessary. But I saw what it really was. Cruelty dressed up as pragmatism. The highway lights strobed across his face as he continued. Isabella tried to stop him too. She was the only one who could get through to him, who could make him see past profit to humanity. When she and I started pushing back together, Marco became paranoid. Thought we were plotting against him. Thought I wanted to take everything. Dominic's hands tightened on the wheel. The night he killed her, she'd come to me first, told me she was leaving him, that she couldn't watch him become a monster. I told her to wait, that I'd help her disappear safely. But she went home to pack, and Marco was waiting. The video, I whispered. He staged it perfectly. Made it look like she'd chosen sides, like she'd pulled a weapon to defend me. But Emma, she never carried guns. She hated violence. His voice broke slightly. He killed her to punish us both. Me for challenging him. Her for choosing me. The weight of that confession filled the car like smoke. I understood now why Dominic had been so desperate to protect me. Why he saw my safety as redemption. I was his second chance at saving someone Marco wanted destroyed. And you exiled him instead of killing him. I couldn't. He said it like an admission of weakness. For years, he'd been the only family I had. So I convinced myself mercy was strength, that sending him away was justice enough. But mercy to men like Marco is just opportunity to plan revenge. We reached the city as full dark fell, the skyline glittering with a beauty that hid so much ugliness. Dominic took us not to the penthouse but to a warehouse on the south side. Industrial, anonymous, the kind of building that existed in the gaps of the city's attention. Why are we here? I asked. Because you asked to see everything? He turned off the engine, his eyes finding mine in the darkness. This is where I meet with people who have problems the police can't solve, people Marco's organization used to exploit. I need to check in before tomorrow night. Inside, the warehouse had been transformed into something between an office and a command center. Desks with computers, a conference table, walls covered in maps and photographs. Men and women in business casual looked up when we entered, their expression shifting from professional to surprised when they saw me. Everyone, this is Dr. Reyes. Dominic's introduction was simple, no explanation. She's under my protection. Treat her accordingly. For the next hour, I watched Dominic work. A woman whose ex-husband had violated a restraining order. Dominic made calls, and suddenly the man had a job offer in another state too good to refuse, contingent on immediate relocation. A bodega owner being extorted by a local gang. Dominic's people would handle it. No police needed. Problem solved by Monday. A teenage boy caught selling drugs. Dominic arranged rehab and a job at one of his community centers. Second chance given before the first mistake could define him. It wasn't legal. Probably wasn't even ethical by conventional standards. But it was effective. And I saw in each person's face the same thing. Relief that someone with power had actually listened. This is what I do, Dominic said quietly when the last person left. I solve problems the system ignores. Sometimes I solve them cleanly, sometimes I don't, but I solve them. And Marco? I asked. How will you solve him? However I have to. He led me to a back office, closed the door. Inside, a laptop sat open on a desk, paused video on the screen. But first, you need to see this. He pressed play. The footage was recent, dated 3 days ago, showing Marco in what looked like a restaurant. He was meeting with someone I didn't recognize, an older man in an expensive suit. They talked, shook hands. The video had no sound, but their body language spoke clearly. A deal being made, terms agreed upon. Dominic paused it. That man is Detective Frank Morrison, 20 years with the police department, currently investigating me for racketeering, money laundering, and conspiracy. My stomach dropped. Marco has a cop. Marco has several cops. Dominic's voice was grim. He's been building this for years, Emma. The video of us, the threats, the public narrative, it's all designed to isolate me, make me seem like the villain while he positions himself as the victim seeking justice for his murdered wife. And tomorrow night? Tomorrow night is a trap. He said it with absolute certainty. He wants me at that warehouse so Morrison and his team can arrest me on manufactured evidence. Or worse, so I do something that gives them cause to use lethal force. Either way, I'm eliminated legally, and he takes back everything I built. I processed this, the implications multiplying. Then we don't go. We have to. Dominic turned to face me fully. Because if we don't, he goes after Sophie. And next time, my security won't be enough. He'll make sure of it. So what do? We spring the trap. He pulled up more files on the laptop, showing me diagrams and timelines. But on our terms, I've arranged for federal agents to be present, ones who aren't compromised. If Marco tries to arrest me, they'll intervene. If he tries something else, you'll be ready, I finished. Yes. I studied the screen, seeing the careful planning, the contingencies. Dominic had been preparing for this confrontation since the moment Marco's first threat arrived. This wasn't impulsive revenge. This was chess played with human lives as pieces. Emma. His hand touched my shoulder, gentle but grounding. Tomorrow, whatever happens, I need you to promise me something. What? If it goes wrong, if Marco gets to me before the feds can intervene, you run. You don't try to save me. You don't play hero. You take Sophie and disappear, and you let me be the cost of keeping you both safe. I can't promise that. You have to. His eyes held mine, and I saw in them something I hadn't let myself acknowledge before, love or the beginning of it, dangerous and impossible and real. Because if I lose you trying to save me, then everything I've done, every choice I've made, becomes meaningless. You're not just someone I'm protecting anymore, Emma. You're the reason I remember what protection is supposed to mean. The confession hung between us. Too honest, too raw. I should have stepped back. Should have maintained the distance that kept this professional. Instead, I moved closer. Then don't lose, I whispered. Tomorrow night. You don't lose. He kissed me then, finally. Desperately. Like he was memorizing the taste of hope before it could be taken away. I kissed him back, knowing it was foolish. Knowing I was falling for a man whose world was violence and shadows. Knowing I didn't care anymore because in his arms I felt something I'd forgotten. Safe. When we pulled apart, both breathing hard, my phone was vibrating. Email notification. I opened it, felt the blood drain from my face. A video file, sender anonymous. Subject line, the doctor needs to know the truth. I pressed play. The footage was old, grainy, dated 15 years back. A house, modest and familiar in a way that made my chest tighten. The camera angle suggested it was from across the street, surveillance style. I watched a car pull up, watched my parents get out, laughing about something, watched them walk toward their front door, and watched another car, dark sedan, accelerate from down the block. No brake lights. Just speed and intention and the sickening crunch of metal on metal as it T-boned their vehicle, spinning it like a toy. The crash that killed my parents, the accident that made me Sophie's guardian, that shaped every choice I'd made since, except it wasn't an accident. The dark sedan backed up, drove away calmly. And at the end of the video, the license plate was briefly visible, enhanced in post-production to ensure I could read it. Below the video, a message. Ask Dominic about the Brighton Park job. Ask him who Marco ordered to send a message to the Reyes family about unpaid debts. Ask him who was driving. I looked up at Dominic, saw him watching the screen over my shoulder, saw his face go ashen. "Emma," he started, but I was already backing away, phone clutched in my shaking hand. "Tell me it's not true." My voice sounded far away. Strange. "Tell me you didn't—" "I didn't know." The words came out rushed. Desperate. "Emma, I swear to God, I didn't know it was your family. But you were there. Not a question. A certainty that made the room spin. You drove the car. You killed my parents." The silence that followed was absolute. Confirmation written in every line of his body, in the way he couldn't meet my eyes, in the horror bleeding across his expression. "I was 22. He whispered. "Marco told me it was a message delivery, intimidation, that I just needed to scare someone who owed money. I didn't know. I never knew they'd—" But I wasn't listening anymore. Couldn't hear past the roaring in my head, past the sound of my entire world shattering and reforming into something unrecognizable. The man I'd saved. The man I was falling for. The man I'd trusted with my sister's life. He was the reason I'd had to become her guardian. The reason we'd struggled. The reason every moment of the last 13 years had been survival instead of living. He'd killed them. And Marco had kept that secret, weaponized it, saved it for the perfect moment to destroy us both. I ran for the door, heard Dominic calling after me, but I couldn't stop, couldn't think, could only move. Out of the warehouse, into the night, the city lights blurring through tears I couldn't control. My phone buzzed again. Marco's message, perfectly timed. "Now you know the truth. Tomorrow night, choose carefully. Save yourself, or die protecting the man who destroyed your family. See you at midnight, Dr. M." I made it 3 blocks before my legs gave out. The sidewalk was cold beneath my knees, the November air cutting through my jacket like I was made of paper. People walked past, some glancing, most ignoring. Because this was the city, and a woman crying on the street was just another Tuesday night tragedy, not worth stopping for. 13 years. 13 years I'd carried the weight of my parents, death like a stone in my chest, believing it was random, believing the universe was just cruel and arbitrary, and sometimes good people died for no reason at all. I'd built my entire identity around that loss. The responsible older sister, the doctor who saved people because she couldn't save them, the woman who controlled everything she could because so much had been taken beyond her control. And it was a lie. All of it. Not random, not arbitrary, a message delivery gone wrong, intimidation that became murder. And the man who'd driven that car, who'd stolen my parents and my childhood and every good thing that should have been. I'd stitched his wounds and let him into my life and my sister's life and kissed him like he was salvation instead of damnation. My phone buzzed. Dominic, calling for the 7th time. I declined it, then turned the phone off completely. I couldn't hear his voice. Couldn't hear him try to explain the unexplainable, justify the unjustifiable. I didn't know how long I sat there. Long enough for my fingers to go numb. Long enough for the shock to calcify into something harder, sharper. Rage, maybe. Or the hollow space where rage should be. A car pulled up to the curb. Black sedan. And for a hysterical moment, I thought it was the one from the video, come to finish what it started. But the window rolled down and I saw a face I didn't recognize. Older man, kind eyes, the sort of gentle authority that usually meant cop or counselor or someone else trained to handle broken people. Dr. Reyes, not a question. He knew who I was. My name is Agent Chen, FBI. I need you to get in the car. I'm not going anywhere with you. Marco Vitali is having you followed. He said it calmly, like he was discussing weather. 2 men, half a block back. They've been watching you since you left the warehouse. If you stay out here, they will take you. And Agent Morrison's dirty cops will make sure no one comes looking. I glanced behind me, saw what he described. 2 figures in the shadows, closer than strangers should be, watching with predatory patience. I got in the car. Agent Chen drove in silence for several blocks, checking mirrors with professional frequency. Finally, Dominic Castellano called us an hour ago. Said you'd learned something that would make you run, that you'd be vulnerable. Asked us to keep you safe until tomorrow night when we move on Vitale. He killed my parents. The words felt foreign in my mouth, too big, too terrible. 13 years ago. He was the one driving. Chen's expression didn't change. but something flickered in his eyes. Sympathy, maybe? Or the weary recognition of someone who'd seen too many lives destroyed by collateral damage. "I know," he said quietly. "We've had the case file for 2 days. Dominic gave it to us himself, along with everything else he had on Marco's operations from that period. He's been cooperating with our investigation for 6 months. Dr. Reyes, trying to dismantle what he helped build. That doesn't make it better." "No," Chen agreed. "It doesn't. But it means he's trying to be something other than what he was. Whether that's enough is your decision, not mine." He took me to a hotel, not expensive, not conspicuous, the kind of place that existed in every city for people who needed to not be found. The room was clean and impersonal, and Chen posted an agent outside my door before leaving me with a card and simple instructions. Stay here, stay safe, and decide what I wanted to do about tomorrow night. I sat on the bed and tried to think, but my mind kept circling back to the same impossible question. How do you reconcile the man who killed your parents with the man who'd protected your sister, who'd built community centers and solved problems and kissed you like you were something precious worth saving? The answer should have been simple. You don't. You can't. Some sins are too large for redemption. But I kept seeing Dominic's face when he watched that video, the absolute horror in his expression. The way he'd said, "I didn't know," not as excuse out, but as confession of a guilt he'd been carrying without even understanding its weight. He'd been 22, barely older than Sophie was now, following orders from a man he worshipped, believing he was just delivering a scare tactic, not knowing the car would swerve, the timing would be catastrophic, 2 people would die because he'd done what Marco told him to do. It didn't excuse it. Nothing could excuse it, but it complicated it in ways I didn't know how to process. My phone, I'd turned it back on without thinking, buzzed with a text, not Dominic this time. "Sophie. M, where are you?" Dominic called Maria. Said something happened. He sounds terrified. Whatever it is. Please just talk to him. Please. I stared at the message. At my sister begging me to forgive the man who'd orphaned us both, who'd set in motion every hard choice and sleepless night and moment of fear we'd endured since. Then another text, this one from Dominic's number, but not his words. Too formal, too careful. "Dr. Reyes, this is James, Mr. Castellanos, head of security. He's asked me to inform you that he will not contact you further, will not pursue you, will not impose on your life in any way. Your sister will remain protected regardless of your decision. The safe house is yours for as long as you need it. He wants you to know that if he could undo that night, give his own life in exchange for theirs, he would do it without hesitation. And he's sorry. For all of it." The message that followed was from Dominic directly. Just one line. "I don't expect forgiveness. I don't deserve it. But I need you to live, Emma. Whatever you decide about tomorrow night, please just live." I read it 17 times, looking for manipulation, for strategy, for anything except the raw honesty bleeding through every word. Found nothing but a man who'd been carrying an unimaginable weight and had just discovered it was even heavier than he'd known. At midnight, there was a knock on my door. Agent Chen again, holding a laptop. "You need to see this," he said. "Marco Vitali just uploaded it to every social media platform simultaneously. It's already viral." He showed me the screen. A video. Professional quality. Perfect lighting. Marco sitting in what looked like a home office, speaking directly to camera with the practiced sincerity of a politician. "My name is Marco Vitale," he began. 15 years ago, I built an organization alongside a young man named Dominic Castellano. Together, we ran operations that hurt innocent people. One of those operations resulted in the death of Michael and Patricia Reyes, parents of 2 young girls. I have lived with that guilt every day since. I have tried to atone, to become better, to expose the man who gave those orders and drove that car. He paused. Perfectly timed emotional beat. "Tomorrow night, Dominic Castellano and I will meet at the Riverside warehouse. He has threatened to kill me to silence what I know about his crimes. But I am making this video as insurance, as testimony. If I don't survive tomorrow, know that everything I've done has been to bring him to justice, to give Emma Reyes the answers she deserves about who killed her parents, and to finally end the cycle of violence that man represents." The video ended. 3 million views in 20 minutes. Chen closed the laptop. He's building a narrative, making himself the hero, Castellano the villain. If anything happens to him tomorrow night, the entire world will believe Dominic murdered him in cold blood. And if Dominic doesn't show up, then Marco will release whatever evidence he has about your sister. Make her part of the story. Destroy her life the way yours is being destroyed. Chen's expression was grim. He's covered every angle, Dr. Reyes. The only way out is through… What does Dominic say? That he's going anyway. With or without federal protection. With or without you. That some debts can only be paid in person. I thought about the man I'd met at my door. Bleeding and desperate. The man who'd built community centers and protected families and tried to be better than his beginnings. The man who'd killed my parents and carried that sin without knowing its full magnitude until tonight. The man I loved. Impossibly. Despite everything. I need to see him, I whispered. Before tomorrow. I don't know what I need. But I can't let him walk into that warehouse without what? Without knowing that I understand the difference between the boy who made a terrible mistake and the man who spent years trying to be worthy of redemption he'll never receive. Chen studied me for a long moment, then nodded. I'll make the call. An hour later, I was back in the warehouse where I'd learned the truth. Dominic was alone in the office, sitting at the desk where we'd kissed what felt like a lifetime ago. He looked up when I entered, and the devastation in his expression nearly broke me. Emma. My name like a prayer. You shouldn't be here. I know. I can't ask you to forgive. I know. I moved closer, each step feeling like walking through fire. I can't forgive you, Dominic. I don't know if I ever will. What you did, what you were part of, it destroyed my family. Destroyed me and Sophie, took everything we should have had, and left us with nothing but survival. He nodded, accepting the judgment without defense. But, I continued, my voice breaking, I also know you were 22. I know you were following orders from a man you trusted. I know you didn't understand what you were doing until it was too late. And I know, God help me, I know, that the man you are now would die before causing that kind of pain again. It doesn't matter. His words were hollow. Nothing I do will bring them back. Nothing I build will erase what I destroyed. No, I agreed. It won't. But it matters to the 342 people you gave second chances. It matters to Sophie, who's safe because you protected her. It matters to me. I was standing in front of him now, close enough to touch, close enough to see the tears he was too tired to hide. Tomorrow night, I said quietly. When you go to that warehouse, I'm coming with you. Absolutely not. Not as someone you're protecting. I cut him off. As someone who has the right to face Marco Vitale and ask him why he weaponized my parents' death instead of telling me the truth. As someone who gets to choose what justice looks like for her own family. Emma, if something happens to you because of me, then it's my choice. I touched his face, felt him lean into my palm like he was starving for contact. You don't get to decide what I'm willing to risk. Not anymore. Tomorrow night, we face this together. Or not at all. You'll hate me, he whispered. When this is over, when you've had time to process everything, you'll hate me. And I'll deserve it. Maybe, I admitted. Probably. But right now, in this moment, I just need you to know that I see you. The monster and the man. And I'm choosing to believe the man is who you really are. He kissed me then, desperate, gentle, tasting like salt and regret. I kissed him back, knowing it might be the last time, knowing that tomorrow everything could burn and we'd burn with it. When we pulled apart, Chen was in the doorway. It's time, he said. Marco just moved up the meeting. Not tomorrow night. Now. He's at the warehouse, and he says if you're not there in 30 minutes, Sophie dies. Dominic was on his feet instantly, all softness gone, replaced by the cold calculation of someone who'd survived by being 3 steps ahead of everyone else. It's a trap. Obviously, Chen agreed. But we're ready. Federal agents are already in position. You go in, we follow. He makes his move. We take him down. And if he's faster, then we hope your doctor girlfriend is as good at saving lives as you say she is. Dominic looked at me, and I saw the question in his eyes. Are you sure? I wasn't. But I nodded anyway. Because some debts could only be paid in person. Some truths could only be faced in the dark. And some choices, The ones that defined who you were and who you'd become could only be made by walking straight into the fire and trusting you'd survive the burning. We left together. Chen and his team surrounding us, the night air cold enough to hurt. And somewhere across the city, Marco was waiting. The Riverside warehouse sat at the edge of the city like a monument to forgotten industry. All rusted metal and broken windows, the kind of place where the river met the railroad tracks and both had given up trying to matter. We arrived in 3 cars, spread out enough to not look like a convoy, but close enough that Chen's team could respond if things went wrong. When things went wrong, not if, when, I could feel it in the air. That electric anticipation before violence, the way the world holds its breath right before it shatters. Dominic felt it too. I saw it in the set of his shoulders, the way his hand kept flexing like he was reaching for a weapon he'd chosen not to carry. Federal agents are positioned on 3 sides, Chen said quietly, his voice coming through the earpiece they'd given me. Small, nearly invisible, but suddenly the most important object I'd ever worn. You go in, get him talking. The moment he makes a threat or produces a weapon, we move. And if he doesn't, I asked, if he's just there to talk? Chen's expression said he didn't believe that possibility for a second. Neither did I. But I had to ask. Had to pretend this could end in conversation instead of carnage. Dominic touched my arm, pulling me aside before we approached the warehouse entrance. Last chance, he said. You can stay in the car. You can let me do this alone. We've already had this conversation. That was before you knew everything. Before you had every reason to let me walk in there and take whatever Marco has planned. His hand cupped my face, thumb brushing my cheekbone. I killed your parents, Emma. I understand if you want to watch me pay for it. The honesty of it gutted me. He was giving me permission to hate him, to use him, to find whatever dark satisfaction might come from watching the man who destroyed my family face his own destruction. That's not who I am, I said quietly. And it's not who you are anymore either. We go in together, we face him together, and we come out of this together. That's the only version of tonight I'm accepting. Something shifted in his expression. Relief, maybe. Or the fragile beginning of belief that redemption might be possible even for sins as grave as his. Together, he repeated, like he was testing the word's weight. Together. The warehouse door wasn't locked, of course it wasn't. Marco wanted us here, had orchestrated this entire confrontation. Locked doors would have defeated the purpose. Inside, the space was vast and empty, moonlight streaming through broken skylights to create pools of silver on the concrete floor. Our footsteps echoed, announcing our presence, making stealth impossible and unnecessary. Marco stood in the center of the warehouse, alone and unhurried, wearing a suit that probably cost more than my yearly salary. He looked different than the man in the videos. Older, certainly, but also smaller somehow, diminished by the years he'd spent building his revenge instead of his life. Dominic, his voice carried across the space, warm and familiar like they were old friends meeting for drinks instead of enemies preparing for war. And the doctor. How appropriate that you brought the woman whose life you destroyed to witness how your own ends. Where's Sophie? I demanded, my voice steadier than I felt. You said if we came. She's safe, Marco gestured dismissively. I'm not a monster, Dr. Reyes. I don't hurt children. I simply needed insurance that you'd both be here for this conversation. So talk. Dominic's voice was controlled, but I felt the tension radiating off him. Say whatever you've been planning to say for 3 years, and then let Emma walk away. Walk away? Marco laughed, the sound sharp and brittle. After everything you've taken from me, after you killed Isabella and built an empire on her grave? No, Dominic. No one walks away tonight. You killed Isabella, I said, the words escaping before I could stop them. I saw the video. You shot her. You murdered your own wife and blamed him. Marco's expression flickered. Surprise, then something darker. Fury at having his narrative challenged. That video was edited, he said smoothly. Manipulated by Dominic to make me seem guilty. The truth is that he pulled the trigger, and I've spent every day since trying to bring him to justice. Except, there's the unedited version. Dominic pulled out his phone, held it up. 17 minutes of footage, full audio, showing exactly what happened. Isabella begging you to stop, you telling her she'd chosen wrong, the sound of the gunshot, Your voice afterward, telling your men to dispose of the body and blame me. Lies, truth. Chen's voice came from the shadows as federal agents emerged from positions I hadn't known they occupied. We have forensic analysis confirming the video's authenticity, Mr. Vitale. We have testimony from 3 people who were present that night. And we have enough evidence of your operations over the past 3 years to ensure you never see daylight again. Marco's face transformed, the practiced charm falling away to reveal something raw and desperate underneath. His hand moved to his jacket, and I saw it happening in slow motion. The gun, the barrel rising, the moment where everything could spiral into violence. But he didn't point it at Dominic. He pointed it at me. You want justice, Dominic? Marco's voice cracked. You want to save someone this time? Then watch me take from you what you took from me. Watch the woman you love die because you weren't good enough, weren't fast enough, weren't... Dominic moved. I'd never seen anyone move that fast, crossing the distance between us and Marco like physics didn't apply to him. Like desperation had made him superhuman. He hit Marco's arm just as the gun fired, the sound deafening in the enclosed space, the bullet going wide. Then they were on the ground, struggling, and federal agents were shouting, closing in, but everything was chaos and noise, and my medical training was screaming at me to move, to help, to do something. The second gunshot was quieter somehow, more final. Everyone froze. Dominic rolled off Marco, breathing hard, blood spreading across his shirt. For a terrible moment, I thought he'd been hit. But then I saw Marco beneath him, saw the gun still in Marco's hand, saw the wound in Marco's chest that was pumping blood with the rhythm of a failing heart. Emma? Dominic's voice was urgent. I need you. I was already moving, dropping to my knees beside Marco, my hands automatically assessing the wound. Entry wound, center mass, no exit wound visible, which meant the bullet was still inside, possibly lodged near the heart or major vessels. His breathing was labored, blood bubbling at his lips, punctured lung, maybe worse. Apply pressure here, I told the nearest agent, guiding his hands to the wound while I checked for other injuries. Call an ambulance. We need... Emma! Marco's voice was wet, struggling. His hand caught mine, surprisingly strong for someone losing blood this fast. Emma, wait. Don't talk. Save your strength. No, he coughed, red spattering his lips. Need you to know. Your parents. Wasn't supposed to. The car wasn't supposed to hit them. Just scare. Just a message. But Dominic was young, inexperienced. Lost control. Accident. He coughed again. Harder. Real accident. Not murder. Manslaughter. Maybe. But not what I told him it was. I stared at him. At this dying man using his last breaths to rewrite history. For years I let him believe he was a killer. Marco continued, his voice fading. Let him carry that guilt, shaped him with it, made him into my weapon. And when he tried to be better, tried to leave, I couldn't let him. So I made him think he'd destroyed you. Made him believe he owed me for the mercy of not telling you the truth. Why? The word came out broken. Why tell me now? Because he won. Marco's eyes found Dominic, standing above us with federal agents restraining him even though he wasn't fighting. Because he became something better than I ever could. And because I'm tired of being the villain when the real villain was the boy I was when Isabella first loved me. Before I learned that power mattered more than people. His hand went slack in mine. His breathing stuttered, stopped, started again with a horrible wheeze. I'm sorry, he whispered, though I didn't know if he was talking to me or Dominic or Isabella's ghost or all of us at once. For all of it, I'm so sorry. Then he was gone. I felt it. That absence of presence. The way a body becomes just a body when the person inside stops fighting. I kept doing compressions anyway, kept trying to restart what had stopped, because that's what I was trained to do. Because saving people was the only thing I knew how to do even when they didn't deserve saving. Dominic pulled me away gently after the paramedics arrived, after they'd confirmed what I already knew. Marco Vitale was dead, killed by his own gun in a struggle that ended the only way it ever could have. Self-defense. The agents agreed. Clear case, no question. But nothing about this felt clear. We gave statements, answered questions. Confirmed timelines and motivations and the sequence of events that led to a man dying on a warehouse floor while I tried futilely to save him. Chen was professional but kind, understanding that trauma didn't care about legal categories, that watching someone die marked you regardless of whether they deserved their fate. Dawn was breaking when they finally let us leave. Sophie was already back at the penthouse. Maria had brought her once the all-clear was given. Once it was safe to reunite families that had been fractured by violence and lies. She met me at the door, threw her arms around me, and held on like she'd never let go. "I'm okay," I whispered into her hair. "We're okay. It's over." "Is it?" She pulled back, studied my face with those two knowing eyes. Is it really over?" I looked at Dominic, standing in his own doorway like he wasn't sure he belonged there anymore. Blood still on his shirt, exhaustion written in every line of his body. He looked back, and in his expression I saw everything we hadn't said, the grief and relief and complicated mess of emotions that came from watching an enemy die while trying to save his life. "I don't know," I admitted to Sophie, "but we survived it. That's enough for now." Chen called 2 days later with updates. Marco's organization was being systematically dismantled, his corrupted cops arrested, his operations shut down. The evidence Dominic had been gathering for months was enough to prosecute dozens of people, to begin cleaning up the damage Marco had done during his years of careful vengeance. My hospital reinstated me with an apology and a promotion. Someone high up had made calls, and I suspected Dominic's influence even though he swore he hadn't interfered. I chose to believe him. Chose to accept that sometimes good things happened without strings attached. Sophie went back to school with real security this time, the kind that existed in the background of her life without dominating it. She was shaken but resilient, stronger than I'd given her credit for, already making plans for her future like she refused to let trauma define her. I envied that strength. Wished I knew how to move forward with the same certainty. A week after Marco died, I went back to the warehouse. I don't know why, some need to see the place in daylight, to prove to myself it was just a building and not a monument to the worst night of my life. The bloodstains had been cleaned, the police tape removed, just empty space and echoes now. Dominic found me there. Of course he did. I was starting to think he had some kind of tracking device on me, though that might have just been the way he seemed to know when I needed him most. "You shouldn't be here alone," he said. "I'm not alone now." He stood beside me, both of us looking at the spot where Marco had died, where I'd tried to save a man who'd spent 3 years trying to destroy us. "He was right," I said quietly. "What Marco said at the end, about my parents, it was an accident, wasn't it? Not murder, just a terrible, stupid accident." "Yes." Dominic's voice was hollow. "I lost control of the car, hit them when I was trying to swerve past. By the time I realized what I'd done, they were gone. And Marco told me it was my fault for being careless, for not following orders precisely. He made me believe I was a killer so I'd be loyal to him forever. And you believed him? I was 22 and desperate for family." He turned to face me. He was all I had, Emma. So yes, I believed him. I believed I was a monster, and I spent 15 years trying to prove I could be something else. But the truth is, I don't know what I am anymore, monster or man or something in between. I thought about the community centers, the people he'd helped, the way he'd protected Sophie without hesitation, the way he'd walked into that warehouse willing to die if it meant keeping me safe. "You're someone who made a terrible mistake and spent his life trying to atone for it," I said. "You're someone who was manipulated by a man who knew how to weaponize guilt. And you're someone who, despite everything, still believes in saving people. Even people who don't deserve it. Especially them." I touched his hand, felt him tense, and then relax. "That's what makes you different from Marco. He spent 3 years planning revenge. You spent 15 years building second chances. It doesn't bring them back." "No," I agreed. "Nothing brings them back. But it means something, Dominic. To me. To Sophie. To 342 people and counting. It has to mean something, or what was it all for?" He was quiet for a long time. Then, "What happens now, with us?" I didn't have an easy answer. The truth was complicated, messy, full of contradictions I didn't know how to resolve. I couldn't forgive him, not completely, maybe not ever, for being part of the chain of events that killed my parents. But I also couldn't ignore who he'd become. Couldn't pretend the man standing beside me was the same frightened kid who'd made a catastrophic mistake 15 years ago. I don't know, I admitted. I know I can't walk away. I know when I think about the future, you're in it somehow. But I also know I need time to process everything, to figure out how to hold space for both the grief of what was lost and the possibility of what could be. Time, he repeated. I can give you time. Can you? I looked at him, at the careful way he held himself, like he was afraid any movement might shatter whatever fragile thing existed between us. Can you give me time without trying to fix everything, without building solutions and creating safety nets I didn't ask for? I can try, a ghost of a smile. It won't be easy. Fixing things is what I do. Then learn to sit with broken things, I said. Learn to let me heal at my own pace, in my own way. Can you do that? For you? His hand turned under mine, fingers interlacing. Yes, I can do that. We stood there as the sun climbed higher, burning off the morning fog, making the warehouse just a warehouse again instead of a cathedral of trauma. And I felt something shift inside me. Not forgiveness, exactly, but the space where forgiveness might eventually grow. The understanding that healing wasn't linear, that love could exist alongside grief, that sometimes the bravest thing you could do was choose possibility over certainty. My phone buzzed. Sophie. Texting a photo of her at brunch with friends, smiling genuinely for the first time in weeks. Below it, living my life, you should try it, M. I showed Dominic the screen. He smiled, real this time, reaching his eyes. She's got a point, he said. She usually does. We left the warehouse together, walking into sunshine that felt earned. And though I didn't know what the future held, didn't know if I could ever fully reconcile the man I loved with the boy who destroyed my family, I knew one thing with absolute certainty. I was done letting trauma write my story. Done being defined by loss. Done choosing survival over living. Whatever happened next, I was choosing it. Consciously, deliberately, with full knowledge of the cost and the possibility, and that, finally, impossibly, felt like freedom. 6 months later, I stood in the trauma center Dominic had built and signed over to me, completely, legally mine, with no strings attached except the quiet hope that I'd use it to save people the way I'd once saved him. The morning sun cut through floor-to-ceiling windows, illuminating the state-of-the-art equipment, the waiting room already filling with patients who had nowhere else to go. We'd opened 3 weeks ago, and already the neighborhood had embraced us. The clinic that asked no questions about insurance or immigration status, that treated gunshot wounds without calling police unless the patient wanted us to, that understood survival sometimes meant existing in the margins of legality. I'd hired Dr. Morrison, my old supervisor, as my second in command. He'd been skeptical at first about the funding source, about my involvement with Dominic Castellano, but the work spoke louder than judgment. We were saving lives. That mattered more than the complicated history that made it possible. Sophie visited every Sunday, bringing coffee and stories from school. She was thriving, biology major, straight A's, already talking about veterinary school with the confidence of someone who'd survived trauma and come out stronger. She'd forgiven Dominic faster than I had, with the easy grace of youth that hadn't yet learned to carry grudges. He made a mistake, she'd told me once, a terrible one, but he spent his whole adult life trying to be better. Isn't that what we're supposed to do? Become better than our worst moments. I'd had no answer then. Still didn't, really. But I was learning to sit with the contradiction, that the man who'd accidentally killed our parents had also protected us, saved us, given us resources to build lives we'd never have had otherwise. That both things could be true simultaneously without negating each other. Dominic and I existed in careful proximity now. Coffee twice a week at a neutral cafe, conversations about everything except the question we both avoided. What are we to each other? We talked about his work, increasingly legitimate, the criminal empire slowly transforming into something legal and constructive. We talked about my clinic, about Sophie, about the weather and books and the small rituals of normal people living normal lives. We didn't talk about the warehouse, didn't talk about Marco's last words or the way Dominic had looked at me while I tried to save the man who'd destroyed us both, didn't talk about the kiss we'd shared or the future we'd imagined before truth burned it all down. But the space between us was gentler now, less sharp, the wound healing slowly, imperfectly. the way all deep wounds do, with scar tissue that's stronger than the original flesh but never quite the same. I was closing up the clinic on a Tuesday evening when he appeared. No warning, no text, just suddenly there in my office doorway looking uncertain in a way I'd never seen him look before. "Emma," he said. Just my name, but carrying weight. "Dominic." I saved the patient file I'd been updating, gave him my full attention. "Everything okay, Sophie?" "Sophie's fine. Everyone's fine." He stepped inside, closed the door behind him. "I need to tell you something." My heart rate picked up despite myself. "Okay. I'm leaving the city, not permanently, but for a while. 6 months, maybe a year." He stayed by the door, maintaining distance. "There's work I need to do, cleaning up the last of Marco's operations, making sure the people I care about stay protected. It's not dangerous, just necessary. But it means I won't be here for our coffee dates. Won't be around." I processed this, surprised by the sharp edge of disappointment cutting through my chest. When had I started looking forward to those twice-weekly meetings? When had his presence become something I anticipated rather than endured? "When do you leave?" I asked. 3 days. That's soon." "I know, I'm sorry, I would have told you sooner, but I only finalized everything yesterday." He finally moved closer, stopping a careful distance away. "Emma, I need you to know, this isn't me running away. This is me handling the last pieces of the life I used to live so I can fully commit to the life I want to build. The legitimate one. The one where I don't have to apologize for how I make my money or worry that my past will destroy people I care about. People you care about," I repeated softly. "Like me. Especially like you." His eyes held mine. "I know we're not. I know we can't be what we almost were. Maybe we never can be. But Emma, you're the reason I believe becoming better is possible. You're the proof that even people who've done unforgivable things can still do some good in the world." I stood, moved around my desk until I was close enough to touch him but didn't. "You've done more than some good, Dominic. You've saved lives, built communities, given hundreds of people second chances they'd never have gotten otherwise. Because of you," he said quietly. "And because you showed me that mercy was possible, that someone could know the worst thing about me and still see something worth saving." The words hung between us, honest and raw. I thought about forgiveness, how it wasn't a single moment but a series of choices, made daily to release the grip of anger and let something else grow in its place. I thought about the boy of 22 who'd made a catastrophic mistake, and the man of 37 who'd spent 15 years atoning for it. "When you come back," I said slowly, "I want to have dinner, a real one. Not coffee at a neutral cafe where we're both performing normalcy, an actual date where we figure out if what we almost had is still possible." Something shifted in his expression. Hope, carefully contained. "Are you sure?" "No," I admitted. "But I'm choosing possibility anyway. Isn't that what you taught me? That sometimes the bravest thing is choosing to build something new instead of staying safe in what's broken." He smiled then, genuine and unguarded. "I'll call you, every week." "I'd like that." He left the way he'd arrived, suddenly, leaving the space feeling emptier than before. But this time, the emptiness didn't feel like loss. It felt like anticipation, like the pause between endings and beginnings, where anything could happen. I finished closing the clinic, walked out into the evening air. My phone buzzed. Sophie, asking about dinner plans. I responded, making arrangements, building the small rituals of a life I'd claimed for myself. Some wounds never fully heal, but they transform into something else. Wisdom, strength, the particular grace that comes from surviving what should have destroyed you and choosing to bloom anyway. I deserved peace. So I chose it. And when Dominic came back, I'd choose possibility too, whatever that looked like. If you made it to the end of this story, let us know in the comments which city you're watching from, and click the yellow bell to subscribe to the channel and support us. Keep the adventure going by clicking on the suggested video on your screen. Tintar novamente.